From three, Hull comes soaring in again. This uncanny knack and cashes in.
Is on the upper left wing. Just got inside, circles around, pure.
All right, let's be straightforward. Basketball wasn't even played in Game 3. A full-fledged daylight heist took place. The Indiana Fever were in complete control. They were engaged in combat over all of their belongings. Then, without warning, a flurry of whistles tore the game from their grasp. The Las Vegas Aces are all of a sudden practically living at the foul line. Aaliyah Boston isn't even allowed to have a legitimate challenge acknowledged, and A'ja Wilson is elbowing people like it's a mosh pit. Everyone at Gainbridge saw it, really. It caused a social media frenzy. The box score also shouts proof. The Fever outplayed the Aces. They were given the victory right away. The most frustrating thing is that Lexie Hull's tough, career-defining performance was totally overshadowed by all of that controversy. Do you genuinely believe that the Fever will recover from this? Leave a Let's Go Fever remark below if you agree with them.
Wilson sets a screen where she extends her leg out, but of course they call the foul on Lexie Hull for A'ja Wilson's illegal screen. Then A'ja Wilson and Alyssa Smith totally foul Michaela Timpson, but there is no call. Could have took a 1-point lead going into half. Now we're up by 3 and they call a foul that isn't a foul. So we don't get calls when we're getting hit, but the Aces get a call.
No one is sugarcoating it, you see. The third game was terrible. However, let's face it, Indiana had previously felt like they were up against two teams at once. The officiating has been tilting more towards Las Vegas than a crutch since the series' absolute rise, completely upending the competition's delicate equilibrium. Do you recall the first game? It was seen by all. Vegas attempted to claw their way back by essentially living at the free throw line rather than with spectacular plays. However, Indiana's fierce, physical defense was strangely viewed as a distinct sport. The Fever would take a protective stance with their bodies lifted. But for whatever reason, the Aces always made free throws to end those possessions. That solidified a pattern rather than merely setting a tone. That pattern had become much more pronounced by the time Game 2 arrived, and the calls were increasingly blatantly biased.
Steph, why don't you think you were able to find any flow, and when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor, and that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us.
Why do you believe you couldn't find any flow? Steph? What are you attempting to do to jumpstart things, possibly on the defense, when that was the case? Well, when there's a foul call every 10 seconds, it is difficult for us to find flow. It truly is, One of the challenges is that we are unable to move about the floor when they are at the free throw line. They were, considerably more combative and confrontational. And, neither our off-ball moves nor our back cuts were able to offset it. They forced us to step outside of our comfort zone, I guess. After all, rhythm is key to offense. The timing is crucial. It has to do with distance. They prevented us from doing that, and we let them.
Wilson is 1 for 12 as a foul is called on Boston, and that will be number 2 on Aaliyah Boston.
You saw Indiana picking up full court pressure defensively, and if you're Aaliyah Boston, that's the one spot on the floor you do not want to get a foul called.
And Stephanie White is trying to challenge it and did not call the timeout in time. Gray in the corner.
The whistles really piled up every quarter in Game 2. What began as minor annoyances swiftly escalated into a constant, oppressive drag on Indiana's flow, necessitating a post-game call from coach Stephanie White. Oh, but by game, it was more than simply a pattern. The Fever were unable to scale this imposing, unachievable wall. Aaliyah Boston's attempt to contest a foul call on Jackie Young in the third quarter set off the worst possible scenario. There, Coach Stephanie White gestured for the review. The whole bench was prepared and teeming with excitement, but the officials refused to even look at it. Chelsea Gray buried a 3 seconds later. The crowd suddenly stopped shouting with electric excitement and began gasping in complete shock as Indianapolis' hard-earned lead simply disappeared.
Minute recap from last night. So Asia Wilson pushes Howard in the back. Howard pushes her in the back. It's a foul on Howard. Look at this. Aaliyah Boston gets totally fouled by Alyssa Smith. Like, it's obvious, but no call. And then Asia Wilson gets the call for not half as much. And then Alyssa Smith gets the call for not even getting touched. Here's a replay just to prove it to you. Yep.
The swing of the scoreboard wasn't the only factor in this. It was about the icy message it conveyed. After the Fever had put in enough effort and achieved enough separation, all of that heartbreaking labor was suddenly erased by whistles and yet another Vegas bucket. The crowd in Gainbridge erupted, screaming and flailing their arms at the referees, who appeared to dismiss it all with indifference. And here's the thing. Snippets of that whole ridiculous exchange went viral online almost immediately, with detailed analyses showing how that utterly disregarded challenge essentially changed the course of the game in a single possession. Even more absurd, the same film showed an unrelenting series of flops, cheesy pushes, and frequent, obvious elbows from the aces that hardly attracted the officials' attention.
Offensive foul, practically a football check, and the aces score. So now the aces cut it to 2, and then Asia Wilson sets an illegal screen, and they tie things up. And then Lexie Hull gets called for a foul for doing nothing when they just had 2 illegal screens they didn't call. All right, so this is fair. Same thing happens on the other side, but they don't call a foul for Kelsey Mitchell. So Leah Boston gets called for this foul for getting her arm grabbed, but Stephanie White can't challenge. They won't let her. That's the second time this game they didn't let her have her challenge. And then Asia Wilson starts acting like a big bitch.
The entire situation feels far more like an open favor than an error. Asia Wilson is capable of flinging her shoulder into Boston. Without a whistle, Fever defenders were being slung onto the court like rag dolls, and flailing arms somehow served as defense, but only if you were wearing a Vegas jersey. In the meantime, every single Indiana contact was handled as though it were a whole crime scene. The outcome we witnessed was not one of momentum brought about by exceptional performance or unadulterated brilliance. Oh no. Referees carrying their whistles like weapons essentially handed out momentum as a gift.
That's the mismatch on Lloyd. Help comes. Kick out. Hull will fire. And hit from 3. Last 2 positions inside from Indiana. Smith tied up.
One Fever player made the decision that this game would not only be about bad calls, even though that kind of injustice may have totally destroyed the morale of a weaker bunch. It was made sure of by Lexie Hull. How often, after all, do you witness a player who most likely shouldn't be on the floor alter the course of a playoff series? That's precisely what made Lexie Hull the Game 3 headline that couldn't be ignored. After infuriating her back in the first game of the series, she wasn't even meant to be out there. She was marked as doubtful when she arrived on Friday. There was very little practice. She appeared rigid even during warm-ups. Furthermore, supporters weren't exactly expecting much. Let's face it. Hull transformed her night into something truly unique, something Fever fans will be talking about long after the series is over, rather than merely recording a few cautious minutes to give her teammates a break.
The left side of the floor, just to clear out, letting Jackie Young go to work.
Jackie Young with 17 points. Boston to the corner. Hull, catch, fire, and hit. Correct call. Evans dishes. Ray whips a pass inside. What a denial from Lexie Hull.
The Hull able to save the play.
12-point game, a little under 2.5 to go. Hull hits Indiana's first field.
Her face was seen on camera twisted in obvious anguish on numerous occasions. She persistently boxed out much bigger frontline players, though, and went after rebounds that, by all rights, belonged to taller aces. We watched her leap onto the hardwood, grapple ferociously for boards, and then manage to pull herself together, get over the discomfort, and calmly make important shots. Hull gave them these amazing spurts of vitality each and every time the physician attempted to lower the temperature. Hull gave Indiana a real chance to fight back by refusing to let possessions die, even when the Aces were being absurdly rewarded at the free throw line. That's why she had such a strong connection with the audience. Fans of Fever were fully aware of what they were witnessing. A player risking her career, her entire body, and her personal well-being because her team was in dire need of her.
Back to Hull. Wide open three is good.
The floor that she wants, doesn't it?
It does. Mitchell. Connect. Here's Mitchell. Mitchell, one more. You bet.
And to be honest, that's what gives the whole evening such a completely off vibe. That same evening, Lexie Hull gave Indiana her greatest ever postseason performance. The enraged whistles that literally flipped the scoreboard were the only topic of conversation. Such a huge endeavor was worthy of receiving all the attention possible. Sadly, though, it was buried beneath this mound of dispute. Perhaps this is why Hull seems to be the ideal tragic embodiment of this Fever squad. Underestimated and consistently defeated, but steadfastly unwilling to concede. What does it say about Vegas that their greatest and most well-known performer hardly made an appearance at all, if she was the epitome of grit? I mean, really, picture yourself as the league spokesperson, a contender for MVP, and going almost 3 quarters without making a basket. Yes, in Game 3 that was Aho Wilson. Her first three-pointer of the evening appeared to be a sign of her impending dominance, but after that, the shots simply stopped coming. She finished the night at a miserable 6, having gone astonishingly 1 for 1 from the pitch by halfway. It's not only poor by her own stratospheric standards, that's 13 points on 20 attempts. In the W, it's absolutely awful for any starter. She chose to drift outward, settle for contested fadeaways, and appeared visibly agitated as Aaliyah Boston repeatedly drove her into extremely difficult shots, rather than bullying within the paint or setting that authoritative tone for which she is known.
She gets a foul call with a 3-point game for, I don't know why they called that foul, but it's the 3rd quarter and they want them to win. So here we go. Ace is up by 3. They call another foul for A'ja Wilson that isn't a foul. All right, so then they call another foul on the Fever that isn't a foul. And then to end the game after it's out of control because the Fever had a 6-point lead, but they kept calling fouls, another foul for A'ja Wilson that's not a foul. Ball don't lie, A'ja. Missed 11 shots in a row.
Even with all of Angel Wilson's difficulties, Vegas emerged victorious. And to be honest, that's what fans really find annoying. Since, let's be honest, everything else just kept going their way, the Aces didn't really need AJ to play like her dominant self. Jackie Young led them by 25 points, making clutch shots that changed the flow each time the Fever attempted to rally, whether it was because of those biased whistles or just her teammates stepping up. When the offense faltered, Chelsea Gray added a solid 15 points by making both jumpers and difficult lands. Even Melissa Smith, who has struggled with consistency at times this season, came through for the Aces when they needed her most, making critical plays on both ends that totally lined up. Everyone else miraculously put together enough baskets to take advantage of the officiating and quickly regain control, while their alleged superstar clinked away with shot after shot. The way the media covered it, however, is what really makes it all more offensive. Many sites either embellished the story with Wilson's overall influence or used her box score to present a very clear story of struggle. You know, a couple assists, blocks, rebounds, or a total shift in the A's depth. What was entirely lost in the translating process? Aaliyah Boston was essentially harassing her during every possession, preventing her from having any open space, and pressuring her into uncomfortable contested shoots that completely eliminate efficiency, which is the true reason she was so inefficient in the first place. It is not merely a bad night when a league MVP shoots a pitiful 30% on 20 shots. Aaliyah Boston deserves a great deal of credit for her outstanding one-on-one defense.